All right, welcome back, people, to Gonzo, Mike, and a VCR. I'm Gonzo.
This is Mike.
We're going to
And
discuss.
this is Joe Falco.
Oh, there we go. Jump on in, Joe. Joe's our super fan today. So, and he's a returning super fan. So he was with us, as you'll remember, in Goodfellas. We're going to discuss another movie today because Joe is back as our super fan. It's going to be another gangster movie because he's a New York guy. So, Joe, I want to talk to you a little bit about this movie here. The movie is a Bronx Tale, and Joe picked it because he's a super fan, like he was a super fan of Goodfellas. And Joe also, as you'll remember from the Goodfellas episode, for those of people who listened to it 3 or 4 times, because it's doing very well. Other than the YouTube streams, Michael, it is the Goodfellas just hit ` 1. So
Wow.
Very nice.
Yeah, there we go. So Joe's also the co-host of the Naked Subjects podcast. Reintroduce yourself quickly, Joe, and tell us how you became a super fan of A Bronx Tale.
Well, as the audience knows, Steve and I were in the military together, so we're Army brothers. I am an accountant by trade. Me and another friend of mine, Gerardo, started a podcast called Naked Subjects, where we talk about a whole host of issues, and it's like there's really no bars on what we say and what we talk about. As far as how I became a super fan of Bronx Tale, well, the movie came out, and of course, Robert De Niro was in it. It just looked interesting because anything Robert De Niro was in, I'm going to be interested in watching. And it was a hit as soon. I mean, just the opening scenes, just the very first opening scenes, I was like, wow, this is, it just really pulls you in. And then it just keeps giving because it keeps going into areas that are controversial, that are engaging, that are interesting. And then there's a moral at the end of the story. So it's just an excellently made movie, and it's very authentic in as far as capturing Italian culture and mafia culture and New York culture. So I'm a super fan.
Okay, very good, very good. So I just saw recently dropped an episode of Naked Subjects dealing with, get this, Michael, psychedelics and religion.
Oh,
So
wow.
I don't know if we're going to drink some ayahuasca down in South America and then go to mass or what, but this one I'm gonna want to listen to it. I have not listened to it yet, but I saw that's just really recent. Is that the most recent one? Then?
Yes, that came out, that dropped last week. So as you guys, I don't know if you guys know, but me and Gerardo are both reverts to the Catholic faith. We were both born and raised. I left the Catholic Church when I was 15. I became an evangelical Protestant for 38 years. Gerardo left the Catholic Church when he was about 17 or 18. He became atheist / agnostic. And about 3.5 years ago, I reverted back to the Catholic Church. And about 2 years ago, he reverted back to the Catholic Church. And one of the things that made him come back was a psychedelic episode from something that he had taken. And he explains a little bit more in detail in this episode.
Okay, I'm going to check it out. I'm going to check it out for sure.
We don't approve of any illegal taking of any illegal drugs.
Of course,
it's just something that happened.
Of course,
but I don't do anything at all.
Yeah, no, of course. We know
not because of any religious reasons. I just don't like alcohol. I mean, Steve, you know the story about me in basic training. Yeah. You remember that, right?
Yeah. So bottom line is, we're not condoning anything illegal, but these things are things that people are trying, and people are trying them for therapy and all sorts of different things. There's a lot going on with that. So it's pretty interesting.
We got to have our disclaimers in there.
That's right. So we're glad you're here with us today, Joe. So we are going to get started on A Bronx Tale. So is everyone's cell phone silenced?
It is.
Yes.
All right, very good. So in this episode, as we said, we're looking at, it's a 1993 coming of age crime drama film adapted from Chazz Palminteri's 1989 one-man play. This is starring Lillo Brancato Jr., Chazz Palminteri himself, and Robert De Niro, and what was also De Niro's directorial debut, A Bronx Tale. So, movie grossed 17.3 million at the box office against a budget of 10. Doesn't sound like a lot, but I would say this movie gets a lot of mileage since then. Like, it's still a big thing. Roger Ebert, who's always a stickler, he gave it 4 out of 4 stars. He said that it was just really a great movie. And the American Film Institute nominated the film for its top 10 gangster films list. So I'm sure that's going to be Goodfellas right up there with it. And I'm sure the Godfathers are going to be up there with it too, and probably Casino and all those things. So this thing got a 97 on Rotten Tomatoes. That's pretty high. So Michael, some people might not have seen it. Joe's a guest. We're going to let you explain the plot in a few minutes here. And for those who haven't seen it, and also for someone maybe who saw it back in 1993, hasn't seen it since, let's refresh everybody's memory, Mike.
Sure. So hopefully I'll do it justice because, Joe, like you said, you're not only a super fan, you're also from New York. So we're looking at Bronx Tale. It takes place, of course, in the Bronx in New York back in 1960. And this is where 9-year-old boy named Calogero, played by Francis Capra as young Calogero. And if you can't tell, I've been practicing how to say that name for about 15 minutes, but he's growing up in a tight-knit Italian-American neighborhood. So his father, Lorenzo, played by Robert De Niro, he's a hard-working city bus driver, and he believes in earning an honest living. But right outside their stoop, right outside their apartment, is another kind of role model, and that's local mob boss Sonny, played by Chazz Palminteri. So one day, Calogero witnesses Sonny shoot a man during an argument in the street. This is right outside his family's apartment building. So we get a glimpse of Joe Pesci, the actor Joe Pesci, who's the man that Sonny's ultimately protecting from the guy he shoots. So when the police question him, Calogero refuses to identify Sonny. And just like that, the little boy earns Sonny's respect. And for a kid growing up in the Bronx, Sonny's larger than life. He's got the money, power, the nice clothes, and the respect, and you might even say fear of everybody on the block. So Sonny starts calling Calogero C. And so that's what I'm going to start calling him. And he takes an interest in him and lets C hang around the neighborhood bar to learn how things work in his world. So C's dad, Lorenzo, hates that. He knows exactly what Sonny represents, and he spent years trying to teach his son that real strength comes from working hard and staying out of trouble. So then a lot of other things happen, but we're going to fast forward 8 years. Now C, now played by Lillo Brancato Jr., is 17, living between those two worlds. So by day, he's Lorenzo's son. By night, he's hanging around Sonny's crew. And Sonny likes the kid, but interestingly, he doesn't actually want C to become a gangster. He sees potential in him, and he tells him over and over not to make the mistakes that so many neighborhood kids make. Plus, he thinks all of C's buddies are a bunch of knuckleheads anyway. So later in the movie, C meets Jane, played by Terrell Hicks, and she is an African-American girl from a nearby neighborhood. And suddenly C has something else to think about besides cars and friends and mobsters. But the problem is, again, like we mentioned, this is late 1960s, and racial tensions in the Bronx are boiling over at this point. So, but despite the hostility around them, C and Jane start falling for each other. But things get complicated when C's friends attack a group of black cyclists. And C actually tries to protect one of them, who ends up being Jane's brother. But later he gets wrongly accused by Jane's brother of participating in the beatdown itself. So during an argument, C loses his temper and he calls Jane's brother the N-word, which he instantly regrets. It damages the relationship with Jane, at least in the short term. And at the same time, tensions in the neighborhood keep escalating. So C's friends become increasingly angry and reckless, and after the guys from Jane's neighborhood strike back and vandalize their social club, they decide they're going to get revenge. So we've got this cycle going back and forth. Meanwhile, Sonny discovers a bomb's been planted on his car, and he suspects everyone. He even jerks up C and questions him because in Sonny's world, he can't afford to trust anybody. And then comes the turning point of the movie. C's friends pile into a car with Molotov cocktails. They head out to settle the score in Jane's neighborhood. C climbs in with him, not because he wants to go, but because he's afraid of looking weak in front of all his buddies. So at the last possible second, we see Sonny appear in the car window that C is in, and without explanation, he orders C, get out of the car. And that decision ends up saving C's life because just a few minutes later, C's friends launch their attack, but one of their own firebombs gets thrown back into the car and the vehicle explodes because all the other flammable liquid in the car kills every one of them. So as C tries to process what happened, he realizes Sonny saved him from ending up just like all of his buddies. So he rushes to Sonny's bar to thank him. But then tragedy strikes again because a young man enters the bar and shoots Sonny in the head. And C later learns that the killer is the son of the man that Sonny killed years earlier, the very murder he witnessed as a child out on the street towards the beginning of the movie. So it's Sonny's funeral. There's plenty of people there, but C's looking around. He sees everybody talking, lost in their own worlds. He remembers Sonny saying one time, he said, nobody really cares. And he also remembers something else Sonny told him. He said, the saddest thing in life is wasted talent. So in the movie's final moments, Lorenzo arrives at the funeral, quietly thanks Sonny for saving his son's life. Of course, Sonny's not there to hear it, but he wants to pay his respects. It's a powerful moment because these two men spent years pulling C in opposite directions, yet both of them ultimately wanted the same thing for him. So as everybody else leaves the funeral home, we see Carmine, and this is the guy, again, played by Joe Pesci, that Sonny saved on the street years ago. He's talking over Sonny. He tells C that he's here for them if C ever needs anything. And as C walks home with his father, he's reflecting on the lessons that he learned from both men.
All right, man. Very good. Joe, anything to add there?
I don't think so. That was a pretty good synopsis.
All right, Michael, as usual, you're getting better and better at this, Mike.
I'm trying.
One thing I gotta say, I'm gonna add this because this is something that my youngest son watched this with me, and he was like, "Man, this guy in this record store, he's getting his store attacked by Molotov cocktails. It's on fire. One of them doesn't break. He has the wherewithal to pick it up and then throw it through like the window that's already broken, like it's a football, and gets it right on the cart. Like, this is an epic throw as far as getting people back from firebombing your store. I mean, and he kills all of the guys. So like, what a hero of the neighborhood that guy's got to be, right? Because he got those guys back. It was crazy though, because my son was like, how the heck did he do that? It was a great throw. So anyway, just had to throw that in there because
Sure.
I don't have it in my notes anywhere else. So Joe, when did you first see this? You saw it first when it first came out, you said, and you said you loved it.
Yeah, I saw it when it first came out. I didn't see it in the theaters. I saw it when it first came out in cable. I was out of the army now for more than a year. And another reason why it was appealing to me was because when I joined the army, I started dating black women,
Okay.
and I had already always been attracted to black women, but growing up in the '80s in an Italian neighborhood in Brooklyn, I know when people think of New York, they think of, oh, it's a liberal city. Maybe Manhattan, you could say that about Manhattan. You can't say that about the outer boroughs, especially not Brooklyn or Queens. These are white working class neighborhoods, ethnic immigrants from Ireland, Italy, Poland. They're not very liberal. All right. They might be Democrats. They might vote Democrat because the Democrats are pro-union and things like that. But socially, these are very, very conservative neighborhoods. So now I was in the army, and it was almost like kind of like being away at college. You can do crazy things when you're away at college because nobody knows you.
Yep.
And then to add to that, a lot of, unbeknownst to me, at least back then, a lot of people outside New York, especially down south, didn't consider Italians white. So that gave me a carte blanche to be able to date black women because none of the white people would judge me, and the black guys would be like, well, at least he's not white, blah blah. So it kind of gave me carte blanche. So now when I got out of the army, I continued to date a lot of black women, and by now, it was like the early '90s. Things were changing, but it was still a pretty controversial thing, with my family, with my friends. So that was another reason why this movie was so interesting to me.
Okay, very good, very good. Mike, you seen this movie before?
I had seen it when it first came out. I was in the Marine Corps, so
Uh-huh.
I cannot tell you the first time I saw it, but I loved it when I saw it. So I'd seen it multiple times, but it's probably been years since I watched it the last time, until just the other day.
Okay, okay, and how? What did you think about it first take?
Oh, I
Uh,
loved it from the first time I saw it. I
okay,
mean, even though it was set in New York and I grew up in the South, there are so many themes in this movie I think all of us can relate to. Uh, like Joe said, it had a particular spot for him. It had a particular spot for me in terms of growing up and thinking you know what you know and learning about the world as you get older. And also, my dad was a Greyhound bus driver. We're talking about the personal things that kind
sure.
of hit us in this movie. So his dad being a bus driver. So when we think about our younger selves, now my wife and I don't have any kids, but it probably hits true to life from the perspective of Lorenzo's dad in a lot of ways.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, I saw this and I looked up actually. I saw it as a rental on DVD for the first time. I did not see it in the movie theater. And I had to look up. I forget the date now because I was like, we're in 1993. Was it still VHS or DVDs had just come out like pretty recently there,
Hmm.
on a large scale. So
Yeah.
my first take, man, I thought it was good. I thought it was so similar, and I didn't know at the time. I wasn't putting together De Niro and Goodfellas and De Niro being a director, but because that was Scorsese, right, in Goodfellas,
Right.
and it's so similar to me in Goodfellas because of the way it's narrated. I love those movies where in Goodfellas it's Ray Liotta, right, is narrating even when the part his voice when he's a kid. In this one, we've got the 17-year-old version of C is narrating the whole thing. Like, so I thought it was really great. I definitely liked it because I just thought it's storytelling like Scorsese did. And I'm guessing, De Niro having been in Goodfellas was like, hey, I I liked how this movie came off. I'm going to do that when I direct it, I'm guessing. So yeah, I really liked it. We're going to talk about the main characters here. Now, this is a little different because we've got a couple people playing C, right? So the first one I want to talk about, it's like the first guy that you're really dealing with here is the little 9-year-old Caligaro. Played by Francis Capra. How do you think this little cute kid did here, Mike?
Yeah, I think he did a really nice job, especially for such a young actor. And I think it's really important in this movie because we've right from the beginning, if you're not buying into kind of the world as he sees it, and you're not buying into his fascination with the neighborhood boss, you might lose interest early on. And I liked a lot of the camera angles that they would do because sometimes they would do it from his height or from his perspective. So you can see the boss, you can see the neighborhood, the
Yeah.
way that he sees it. So no, overall, I think a great job. I don't know that I've seen him in anything else. I could be wrong.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. What did you I don't think so that I've seen him in anything, but maybe I'm wrong. Joe, how did you like him in this little his role as the little C?
Yeah, like Mike said, his performance has to take you in immediately because if it doesn't, you lose interest in the movie. So if you're not taken in by what he's trying to sell you, that may destroy your interest in the movie. Also, I was always interested to know, I never looked this up, probably should have, is he any relation to the producer of the movie It's a Wonderful Life?
I don't
Oh
know.
wow, what is that? Frank Capra?
Yes.
Hmm.
That's a good question because yeah, Capra is not that common a last name, at least as
Yeah.
far as I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to maybe look that up. That's interesting. So, yeah, I think, man, cute kid. He did a great job. I'm going to tell you though, he's got to watch himself. He paused a little bit too long before he said no when he was in front of Sonny. When they did the lineup,
Mhm.
I'm like, say it, because this cop now, he's going to take that pause. That's my behavioral analysis coming in there.
Yeah.
So, um,
Great suspense though, right?
yeah, it was. It
Yeah.
was. He looks up, he looks at his dad, and so I can imagine the cop squeezing his arm right there.
Yeah.
Who knows? So,
He's like,
uh,
I'm gonna say no.
yeah.
and
So,
and
Go ahead.
Yeah, and that was also, very important, because it wasn't just that he was in that situation. The neighborhood was looking.
Yeah.
It wasn't just, oh, the mafia is gonna, come down on you. It was the neighborhood. It was the society that you're living in. Are you a rat or not? Now, keep in mind, obviously not all Italians agree with organized crime, but they understand that it occupies a certain sector of society, and if you choose not to involve yourself in it, they're not going to really bother you. But at the same time, you're not going to actively go against them,
Yeah.
especially if they're in your own neighborhood. Now, there are some Italian Americans who, um, they become police officers, they become detectives, they become FBI agents, and some of it is fueled by their hatred for the mafia, and that takes a special kind of a person. But when you're a kid living in that neighborhood, you got to toe the line.
Yeah, yeah, and that it would be bad news for not only him being labeled a rat, but his family too.
Right.
It just wouldn't be good because all the people, and there's another point I'm going to make when we get on to favorite scenes. So that's related directly to this. So, but so her good point, Joe. 17-year-old C by Lillo Brancato Jr. How do you like him in this role? He was really he's the main narrator, and he's the most of the movie. This is our main guy here. So
Yeah, I have to go back to what you said about the way the movie was narrated, which is very similar to Goodfellas. And I didn't realize that, but that's probably one of the reasons why the movie is so captivating. And the you know the it takes you in to Italian culture back then, to Italian neighborhood. And yeah, Lilo Brancato did a great job as an actor. He was never an actor before this movie. He did a great job narrating. And he's actually not Italian ethnically. He's actually Colombian. He was
oh
adopted as a baby by an Italian family, so he was raised Italian. But he looks Italian. He acts Italian. I mean, I've seen him, in interviews in real life. He's Italian. He's Italian to me. As far as I'm concerned. In fact, if he and I were walking down the street, more people probably consider him Italian than me. So he did a great job. And unfortunately, I think you guys know the backstory. What happened with him after he got in trouble, where he got involved in drugs, and this guy that he was with killed a police officer, and he had to go to jail. And that's a shame. And it shows kind of it's ironic because in the movie, what was that saying? The worst thing is the wasted talent,
yeah,
right? And that's what actually happened to him. But he's been cleaned up since. He's owned up to what he did. Unfortunately, Chazz Palminteri has not forgiven him for it. So it is what it is. But yeah, he did a great job in this
all right,
movie.
Mike, how'd you like him, man?
Yeah, nothing to add to that too much. I like the job that he did. The only thing that I would say is, and this is unavoidable, I don't care who you are as a young actor, his actual performance was probably overshadowed, at least for me, by De Niro and Palminteri. But I mean, who's going to be able to play, to outdo those guys, even if you're the main character? So he was definitely good for his role in the movie as being that central figure.
Yeah, yeah, I like him. He did a great job acting, in my opinion. I don't know of any other roles, and like Joe said, that the trouble that he was in probably negated some of those things. But and I want to say this: I don't know where he grew up, but I
He
mean,
grew up in Queens.
okay, so because I was like, if this guy does not have a New York accent and is trying to
Mhm.
have one, he's great. But so
Yeah.
clearly he has that accent because I mean, it
Yeah, he
just
grew he grew up, I believe, in Howard Beach, if I'm not
yeah.
mistaken, which is a big Italian neighborhood.
Yeah, so that makes it that much more authentic. The narration,
Right.
his voice and his accent, just perfect. So, all right, so we're gonna move on to his dad, Lorenzo, played by Robert De Niro. How did you like his job in here? For a change, Mike, not playing the bad guy, the
Yeah.
gangster.
Yeah, exactly. I love watching him play on the right side of the law just because it was so against type. we're just not used to seeing it. I would equate it. It's sort of like when I first heard that Denzel Washington was going to play the bad guy in Training Day. I was like, oh God, what's that going to be? Because I like watching Denzel play kind of the good guy, but he was incredible at that role. So De Niro, I think it really showed his range because we were used to seeing him do one thing great, and he was just fantastic in this role. And looking back at the relationship between him and C, uh, and again, I come at this. Joe, do you have kids?
No, I don't.
Okay, I don't have kids either. I know Steve's got sons. But I was just thinking, how would it feel to have your son that you've raised, taken care of, saying, Sonny's right. Sonny was right. The working man is a sucker. For dad to hear that, that's got to feel like your kid is stabbing you in the heart. He's spitting uh on everything that you are, at least in that moment, because I know even if we don't have kids, we've been kids, and you grow up and you say stupid things. You do stupid things that you don't mean, but in the moment, you can't control how it feels to your parents. So also Lorenzo was my favorite character because I mentioned before he reminds me of my dad. So dad retired from being a Greyhound bus driver. He and my mom owned a bar where I grew up, which mom ran. So I can see my dad in that Lorenzo and the frustration he had to feel sometimes when things were beyond his control, kind of like when I was growing up and I was beyond my dad's control.
Okay. All right. Very good. Very good. Joe, how did you like
Yeah,
De Niro here?
yeah. I think playing the role of a passive good guy was was really good. I mean, I don't know if you guys know, but he even played Frankenstein in the movie. I think it was from the 80s, and I didn't even know it was him. He played the actual monster. So whatever role he plays, he just makes you believe, he's that person. Um, as far as the role, the role itself, yeah, it was something that was very powerful, especially this famous line where where he's telling him where he's trying to tell his son that um, the mafia guy is not really the way to go, where he says, it don't take much strength to pull a trigger, but try getting up every morning, day after day, and work for a living. Let's see him try that. Then we'll see who the real tough guy is. The working man is the tough guy. Your father is the tough guy. That, in my opinion, was the best part, the best line in the entire movie.
Okay.
And yeah, like Mike said, in our young age, um, some of us, are rebellious and we say things to our parents, and we reject certain things that they try to raise up us. And I know for me, I hated being Italian growing up. I didn't want to have anything. I used to say, I wish I was like Irish and German. I had an Italian American friend of mine said, Joe, I could understand you wanting to be German, but why the hell would you want to be Irish? No offense to the Irish. I still love the Irish to this day. But, I
Uh,
was not proud of my Italian heritage. I hated New York. At 15, I left the Catholic Church to become evangelical Protestant. My parents thought I was out of my mind, completely out of my mind. So yeah, so we do things at that age that hurt our parents, and then not to mention, I came back from the army dating black women, so you could imagine
mhm.
the crazy things, that, I was doing, and the things that just were not acceptable to the way I was raised. So, but that line was the best line in the whole movie, and that really made his character, as far as I'm concerned.
That was a great line. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny when I was thinking about this recording after rewatching the movie for it, I was thinking about, is this a little bit like there's a Sergeant Barnes and Sergeant Elias, and Sonny
Ah,
has these two,
yes.
like different philosophies on life, and there's the good, and then hey, here's how life is, So Sonny would be more obviously like Barnes, and Lorenzo like Elias. But it's really crazy. I mean, having two sons myself, there's a point like I remember when I was a kid and I was like, yeah, my parents, yeah, whatever, they don't know what they're talking about, right? And I've been through that on the other end of it, so I know it. And it's a true thing that happens, that some people do it to different extremes than others. Um, but I think part of it is not always like, hey, I don't want to be like my parents. Some of it's like that, because sometimes people say, oh, if my parents are somewhat successful, I want to be somewhat successful. But people want to be an individual. And so
Mhm.
that creates this want of separation. Like, hey, I don't want to be like your son in terms of that's my definition. I want to be me. And that's a big part of it. And people do find ways to do that. And yeah, some of the things they say, it hurts. But I think if you look at it and
Mhm.
say, they're not doing it to hurt me, just trying to spread wings and try to find out who they're going to be as a human being. So at least that's how I take it, so I don't cry myself to sleep every
So you don't assume the fetal
day.
position and
That's
the
right.
crying game.
That's right. So like nice work for De Niro here. Not a gangster for a change. I loved it. It was a good directing debut. I thought the movie came off great. Of course, we know him from Goodfellas, Cape Fear, Taxi Driver, Raging
Oh
Bull, The
yeah.
Deer Hunter. I mean, he's got a resume that's beyond anything.
Mhm.
It's of course he's going to end up being a director. So
Yeah.
did a great job here. So I'm going to move on to Sonny. And before I started getting some notes together for this, I didn't know Chazz Palminteri had the background with the play and everything like that. So we're gonna see. How did you like Chazz Palminteri here, Joe, as Sonny?
Yeah, he hit it off with me immediately because he has that ethnically Southern Italian face. That's it's just I mean, when you see him, you can't mistake him for anything else but a Southern Italian. And he's a great actor, and his mannerisms, everything, took you in. Um, and he was also, I mean, the story's about him, right? He's Cologio,
Yep.
and he was born and raised in the Bronx in that time period. So everything about that role was just 360. I mean, there was nothing missing, nothing that I would have added. And I don't think I saw him in any other movie before that. I know he was. I think he wasn't he in uh, analyze it again, or analyze this, or analyze it again. I think he might have been
I
in there.
know I know him. The only other place I recognize him from is The Usual Suspects.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he's in The Usual
And
Suspects.
he was like the detective doing the interrogation
Mhm.
of what's his face,
Right.
the guy who ended up being Kaiser Sose, right? Um, but yeah, I don't know him from anything else. But this is a thing. I list like movie awards and stuff at the start of these
Mhm.
podcasts. There was a low level award that he won from, like, maybe it was in Canada or something, and it was for best foreign actor. So I don't know. I didn't really go through and research like where he was born. Was he originally born in Italy and then came over?
No, he
Because
was born. He was
because
born and
they
raised in Brooklyn.
because they were indicated best foreign actor. I don't know. Maybe that was it. They're thinking, hey, in Canada,
Well,
he's
you
our.
said if it was in Canada,
Yeah,
he was a
I
foreigner,
think
right?
so. Someone's
Mhm.
going to call me out on it. Whatever, I'm probably wrong, but he did win an award for that, and because so, like you said, he did a great job acting. Mike, how'd you like him here?
Yeah, I loved him. Matter of fact, I want to say he's probably one of the more underused great actors because we went back and watched this movie. I was looking at his filmography. I was like, hey, there's got to be a lot more good movies I have not seen with him in it. And unfortunately, a lot of them were like B movies or things that I hadn't heard of. I'm not saying they're not good movies, but he just hasn't been in a lot of big movies besides this and Usual Suspects. Uh, but in terms of the way he played it, uh, he was like he was hypnotic. I mean, you wanted to watch more and more of him. You wanted to listen to his worldly wisdom. You wanted to hear his life experience. And what made him so interesting was a lot of times you watch movies like this, and either somebody's the good guy or the bad guy, and he's just this complex like father figure to see. And you don't, by the end, when he gets shot, you don't want to see anything happen to him, even though, he roughed up Lorenzo at least once during the movie. And I didn't like that. But I think if it'd been anybody else except Lorenzo, he might have just had him taken out.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
great, great character, great actor.
Yeah, he was great for the role. Perfect guy, of course, because he's playing like himself, really. It's
Yeah.
his story. I wonder if like this script comes up, they're like, hey, there's this play and there's this role and it's a mob thing, and that someone gets De Niro to direct it. I wonder if De Niro's like, hey, maybe that should be me. But then he's like, oh, wait, this guy, this is him. Like De Niro probably would have liked to be in the role of Sonny, but I mean, you got to use
No,
Chaz. It's about him.
I think De Niro, because I don't know if you know the backstory about this, because this was originally a one man play, right?
Yes, yes.
And it was Robert De Niro that went to see it, and he went to see him backstage and say, "Hey, this could be a movie."
Okay.
And he says, "I want you to play Sonny, and I'll play Lorenzo." So it was actually Robert De Niro's idea to play Lorenzo and for him to play Sonny. And prior to this, he was trying to sell it
Mhm.
to Hollywood, and they wanted to give him 100,000, 200,000 for it. Finally, I think they offered him like $2 million for the movie, but they said he could not be in the movie. He could not play Sonny, and he said, "No, I have to play Sonny." And they said, "Forget it. No, nobody's going to do it." They says this movie's not going
Mhm.
to get made. He says, "No, it's going to get made." And then, he went back on stage, and like I said, this was a one man show. He played all the characters. And by the way, I saw it. I went to see it about a year ago. Me and my wife went upstate somewhere, and it was great. It was great to see him, and it was just awesome. But yeah, so that's when Rob De Niro saw it, and he gave him the offer. And at that point, Rob De Niro was already a star, so he had much more connections. So they made a movie out of it.
All
Yeah.
right. All right. Very good.
Sounds very similar to Stallone. Remember how Stallone he
Yes.
came with the Rocky screenplay and they said, "Hey, we want anybody except you," and he was like,
Yes.
"No."
Yeah. Yeah. And look what he did with it. He did all the Rockies and he pulled Creed right off of that and let them like it's
Hmm.
just there's a lot of people who don't like Sly and they're like, oh, he's not a good actor. And it's like dude's a genius for what he's pulled off.
Right.
He's done Rocky, he's done Creed, he's done Rambo, he's done what's the one with
Rhinestone, I know that's a big one for you,
no, I'm
Steve.
talking about the other series, the series
Rambo. Rambo.
of the
Rambo.
movies. No, the movies with
Oh, the Expendables.
yeah,
I
the
know that's
Expendables. The
yeah,
Expendables. That's his brainchild too. So, and bringing all those old guys back. So,
yeah.
yeah, he's incredible. And
And for those roles, he's the perfect guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, it's a lot like Clint Eastwood or John Wayne. Sometimes like he's playing
Hmm.
himself in a lot, and that's what Chaz is doing here. So, yeah, he did a great job here, and it couldn't have been anyone else but him. So, I want to talk about some other characters. These are small characters, but we're going to throw them in here because they're part of the story. So Rosina, this is C's mom, played by Catherine Narducci. How do you like her in this role, Mike?
I liked her. I thought she brought a warmth to the role that you needed to kind of temper what would you call the conflict that was going on between Lorenzo and C. And so she was like the warmth of the household. We didn't see her a whole lot
No.
because it was really about those two men and that one boy that they were like fighting for the soul of. And I got to say, Steve, you nailed it when you call that parallel with Platoon. That did not occur to me, but it is such a similar dynamic. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think she did a great job. The only other thing I'd seen her in was The Sopranos. I want to
yeah.
say was she Artie's wife?
I'm
If
not
I if
big
I
on Sopranos. I don't watch a lot of shows. I stick mainly to movies, but I know she's been in there, and my son's been streaming that, and I think she was. I think maybe I'm wrong here, but I thought he was watching it the other day and I'm looking
yeah.
over his shoulder and I felt like, remember the guy who got shot in the foot in Goodfellas and then they ended up killing him? The guy who was serving drinks?
Yes.
That guy, I felt like she was hanging out with him in Sopranos
Mhm.
because he's obviously a big part of Sopranos as the younger, newer guy in their sort of gang, so to speak. But I'm
Mhm.
not sure. So Joe, how did you like her, Rosina and Catherine Narducci here, and what do you know about her? Anything else?
Yeah. The word I would use for her is authentic. I mean, she was authentically New York Italian female. I mean, she's every New York Italian female I've ever met. The accent, the mannerisms, the vibe she gives off. It was just perfect. And even the way she kind of like disagreed with Lorenzo when they gave him the offer to carry numbers. She was like, well, it's only numbers. A lot of
Mhm.
Italian Americans, would be like, what's the big deal? You're not killing
Yeah.
anybody, right? But he was smart. He's like, look, if I get pinched, this is a city job. If I get pinched, I'm done.
Yeah.
I lose my pension and everything. So he was smart to say no. Um, and then when they found the cash and Lorenzo wanted to give it back. And she was like, "Wait a minute, hold up." I said, "I
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
this is not good, but hey, we already have the money.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Why not?" You know. But Lorenzo was such a purist. He's like, "I don't know where this money came from. I don't know what he did to earn this money. This could be blood money. This could be
Yep.
cursing our family. I don't want it in the house." So
Yeah.
he was looking at it from that perspective. But when but the arguments between the two was very realistic and very authentic. So
Mhm.
authentic is the word that I would use to describe her. But I haven't seen her in anything else. I'm not sure what else she did.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, yeah, nice work in this small part. One thing I would say to your comment, Joe, is like I felt like myself when when the kid doesn't rat on him, and Sonny is like, he's doing a nice thing. He's like, you know what? Do something for that guy. Let's get him some money. Give him this job. He rides the bus up and down the street. He can do something for us in that context. Like I feel like that's his olive branch. He's like, hey, like, thank you.
Mhm.
I can help you out. I know that you're just a bus driver and that you don't make nearly, money that you probably would like to be comfortable. So I thought, and I was thinking with her too, Catherine Narducci. You said authentic. I thought the first thing I said, that's like, I don't know. I'm not Italian. I'm not from New York like you, Joe. But I was like, that she hits me as a realistic Italian young mother.
Mhm.
So, because how she's taking care of the kid and how she cares for him and everything. So she did a good job. Small part. Let's move on to Jane Terrell Hicks. Joe, how did you like Jane in this role? It's a small, but it's an important role here.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I wasn't crazy about her acting abilities,
Okay.
and she hasn't done anything since. I heard she's a teacher now. God bless her. Uh, and But as far as for the role she did an okay job. But like I said, I wasn't really crazy about her acting performance. And then I was a little disappointed in an interview I saw her in. Um, I want to say 1993, 1994, where she was being interviewed. It was like a local cable channel. It was very local, and she was being interviewed by a young black guy, and he asked her, he's like, "You don't really date white guys, do you?" And she's like, "No." And I was kind of insulted by that because if the roles were reversed and they were interviewing a white woman who played a part where she dated a black man, and white guys say, "Hey, you don't really date black guys, do you?" And you'd be condemned as racist, Nazi, fascist. But
Yeah. Yeah.
we live in a society where black people can get away with being openly racist and openly disrespectful. So I was really disappointed, and I never really saw her in the same way after that.
Okay. Okay. Mike, what do you think? Jane.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with Joe on the acting because I felt like they could have gotten a more established actress, but I know it's harder when you're getting younger people to play the roles because they almost by definition don't have as much experience. But I would agree it didn't land with me as much. In terms of the back and forth with them, I did enjoy, especially when they very first started dating. I thought it was funny because they are coming from two different worlds, two different neighborhoods, and I love she was kind of like me. She didn't wasn't familiar with his name, so she's like, what kind of name is that? And then he's going up to her thinking, oh, I bet she has some kind of exotic name and it's probably
Yeah.
this or
Yeah.
that. And he said, what's your name? She's like, Jane. He's like, Jane.
He's like, that's it.
Yeah, but it was great because I think both of them were making assumptions based on their own backgrounds. Like he asked
Sure.
her, do you know how to make sauce? And she's like, sauce or gravy? Did he say sauce or
No, he said
gravy?
sauce. He said sauce.
Okay, sauce. So again, they're coming from different backgrounds, different cultures. So it was just fun to watch that interplay just in terms of the characters.
All
Yeah, I
right.
agree. That was the one part of their relationship that really hit home with me, and that I found interesting because that's the experience I had. You always come to these relationships with preconceived ideas, and then you find out, oh, we're really not that different.
Hmm.
I had an ex-girlfriend that I dated right after I got out of the army, and she thought I literally lived in a White House because it was
Mhm.
Hmm.
so and then so there's it's and then and it's and then the differences that there are make the relationship that much more interesting because you're learning about her culture, she's learning about your culture, and of course it has to be with two people that are open
Hmm.
to learning about other people. I mean, because there's some people who date interracially and they totally reject the other person's culture. Like my wife is from Thailand, and she has a few friends, and she knows some people who have married white American men, and the white American men just want to have hamburgers and hot dogs. And Thai food is very exotic and very extensive. And you insult a woman when you don't want to eat her food. I mean, that's an open declaration of war. And they feel terrible. They're hurt.
Hmm.
And me, I've my wife 80% of the food we eat is Thai, and the
Oh
other
yeah.
20% is really Thai Italian fusion, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Spicy.
yes, and it's very spicy. And I thought I could take spicy because I've dated West Indian women, I've dated Hispanic women, I've dated Indian women, and when I started dating my wife, I thought, hey, I could take anything. And she was like, no, this is kind of spicy. And I was insulted.
Mhm.
I was like, what do you think? I'm some Anglo-Saxon from Ireland or something, And she's like, Joe, just try the medium. And if it's not spicy enough, you could always add more. I
Mhm.
said, okay. I tried the medium and it was too much even for me. And I
Mhm.
was like, I should have just kept my mouth shut. But the point here is that, the interaction and them learning about each other was what made their coupling engaging and
Mhm.
interesting and compelling.
Okay. All right. Very good. Very good. So yeah, I thought she did decent work. I don't know of any other roles, and I think Joe, you said there probably wasn't that many other, if any. And but I sort of felt also like you could have almost stuck anyone in there and probably done as well because those lines that were written on the back and forth, it was the lines that did it, not like the actress
True.
to me. So all right, we are going to move on to this is the tiniest small part. Carmine, played by Joe Pesci. I have to put him in there because it's Joe Pesci, and this is a film he's in, and someone would throw stones at me if I didn't put him in there. How do you like him in this very small part, Mike?
Yeah, I love Joe Pesci. It was interesting for me. Um, and at the first part of the movie, I was like, I think that was Joe Pesci, because it was just such a quick glimpse. And then at the end, you see him at the funeral home. I was like, okay, that was Joe Pesci. Um, I always enjoy seeing him. I love his movies, but for this particular movie, I don't even know if you needed someone of his status at the end because I know this may be the unpopular opinion, but I think it might have actually pulled away from the story and had people, you focused in on the relationship. Sonny's gone, the dad and the son are reconciling, and then you're like, hey, is that Joe Pesci?
Yeah, yeah, I hear
so
you.
so I love him, but
Yeah, how do you like him in this role, this tiny little role, Joe?
Yeah, when I first saw the movie, I didn't even know, like in the very beginning of the movie, like I didn't even know that was him, right? I
Same
didn't even
here.
recognize his voice. I mean, now that I've seen the movie a trillion times and I hear the voice, I say, "Oh, it's definitely Joe Pesci." But at the first time, first maybe three or four times, I didn't even know it was him. And then at the end, when you see him, I was like, "Wait a minute, that's Joe Pesci," And like you said, I don't think he was necessarily needed for that role. But because Robert De Niro and him are such good friends, I guess these things happen. And I didn't think about it until Mike mentioned it. But yeah, it does detract a little bit from the uh from the
Like the emotional
Yeah, like the
and
emotional conclude, everything is concluding, and you know it's coming to an end, and everything is coming to, and then all of a sudden, oh, that's Joe Pesci, and that kind of like disrupts it a little bit. I mean, it doesn't
yeah.
destroy the movie, obviously, and
Mm-mm.
I wouldn't make too much of a big deal about it, but it is a point that should be noted.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No, tiny part. I had to include him for because he's Goodfellas, Casino, Home Alone, My Cousin Vinny. He's done so much. Not necessary. I agree with both of you. Like it didn't have to be. It is what it is because really the part when him and his dad are walking off and he's sort of thinking about I'll call it the Barnes Elias thing and trying to figure out where he's going to end up. I think maybe they put the Joe Pesci in. It didn't have to be Joe Pesci. It could have been someone else. Maybe they
Yeah.
put that part in because he sort of indicated, no, no, you know what? I'm not going to, I don't need to call you. I'm going to, because he's sort of going to
Mhm.
figure his life out on his own. And maybe they wanted, but it could have been any actor in there that, an Italian guy. So, all right. So small roles here. I just want to mention and group these people together. First, I want to talk, and it's so reminiscent. I'll just start here of Goodfellas to me, where you meet all the different characters, and it gives you the background and the scene set. So talk about Sonny's crew. Not even going to list all those actors because some of them are just so small background. But did you like the job they did, Joe, with Sonny's crew, all the different characters and creating that sort of that mafia type of vibe?
Yeah, it definitely did that. Because I grew up in a neighborhood. Not going to mention the neighborhood, but obviously there was mafia influence in the neighborhood. But I was such a naive, geeky kid that I had no idea what was going on. But it was going on, and there was a kid that, again, I'm not going to mention his name, but he ended up getting involved with this particular family. He never became a made man. He had his own. So the way it works is that there are crews that are made, right, and then the leaders of that crew would be like a captain, and then the assistant would be like a lieutenant, and then within the crew you have soldiers and you have earners. So the soldiers would maybe be the muscle or carry out certain jobs that required violence, and there's earners that would think of up scams, and to earn. And the soldiers could be earners too, but their main job was to be the muscle. And then these crews would come together into a regime, right? And these regimes would have a capo, right? And then you may have one or two or three regimes, and then they would all flow into the underboss. Sometimes some families have two underbosses, some families have one underboss, and that one underboss would report to the boss. So you would also have crews that were not necessarily made, right? So they'd be called associates. So they would do work for the family, but they were not backed up by the family in the strict sense of the word. And you would make your bones, and hopefully you'd get made. Now, obviously, in order to be made, you have to be 100% Italian. And prior to the 1950s, you had to be Sicilian. It wasn't even enough that you were Italian. The reason why Al Capone went to Chicago to start his own family was because he was not Sicilian. He was Napolitan. He was actually born and raised in the south side of Williamsburg, Brooklyn. So you have these associate crews. So the guy that I grew up with, his mother and my mother were very good friends. We used to go over each other's house. We used to play together. He was a little bit rough, and he became an associate, but he was a high level associate. So he had a lot of interactions and connections with made people and high level people. And at some point, they tried to kill him. He survived an assassination attempt where they actually, you know, they killed his cousin. Him and his cousin were in a place where they were playing cards. His cousin was killed. He had a gun literally pointed to his head, but when the guy pulled the trigger, it slipped. So the bullet went out his ear. So he totally lost hearing in his ear. He survived, and he wanted to seek revenge. They wouldn't let him, again, because he was not made. He was an associate. And then there was another incident where he had beat up uh, one of the boss's bookies because the bookie didn't place a bet that he had put in. So now he was like, "That's it. I'm gonna turn state witness." And he wore a wire in his watch. And again, for being an associate, he had access to a lot of high level people. He ended up putting scores. I'm talking about 40 people behind bars.
Mm.
And one of the things that he negotiated, because he was a really smart guy. He wasn't like your typical dumb guinea from Brooklyn. I mean, he was going to college for accounting. I mean, if this is not the area that he wanted to do, he could have been successful in anything else he wanted to do. But he accumulated a lot of wealth and property. And the deal that he made with the government was that, look, I'm going to testify, I'm going to do this for you, but I'm keeping my property. I'm keeping it because a lot of times they take away whatever you have because you've earned it, illegally. But he negotiated where he got to keep it, and he put away a lot of people. And I'm not going to mention his name. You could probably Google it if you're really interested.
Mm.
But you know, that's how I looked at it. When I was looking at it, I was looking at it from that perspective. And the job that these guys did was good because, again, as an Italian American, I wasn't a part of that world. I was more of a geeky, conservative, born again Christian kind of kid. And that world never really appealed to me. And even to this day, when I think about it, I was like, I share the same DNA with these people because it's just mind-boggling, to me. But there are Italians like that. They look like normal people, but they kill people. And
Yeah.
but these guys did a great job and doing what they did, and they were organized about it, which is the whole reason why the mafia is so successful is because of their organizational skills, right? It's not just that they're committing crime because any idiot could, rob a bodega, but to make the money that you make on this grand level, you have to be organized and you have to be smart. And a lot of these people, believe it or not, are really smart.
Sure.
Sure. How did you like Sonny's crew there, Mike?
Yeah, not a lot to add. I got to say, I know we really appreciate, especially having super fans on, because that's the kind of context, that we can't offer to this movie, and that is very interesting stuff. So yeah, it was good for me too. I loved it because they just seem like a bunch of neighborhood guys. Where some mob movies, everybody's really built up, and it would overshadow the main plot. So I enjoyed the crew.
All right, very good, very good. So
Yeah.
C's crew, I want to talk about these kids just because, and I'll start here. They're just a regular crew of troublemakers. C seems like the best kid in the group. At least that's what Sonny thinks. And probably that his dad, Lorenzo, probably wasn't happy with him hanging out with those guys either. But I'm gonna say it would be so easy for people to say, then why is he hanging with them? But I understand how it is hanging with a crew from growing up myself. Anywhere you grow up, you got a crew, and they do become your friends, even though some of them are knuckleheads. And you do hang with them. You need that social sort of group to hang with. And that's why he got in that car at the end, even though it's like what he could, it was the worst idea what they're doing. But he got in that car, and as much as Sonny told him don't hang out with those idiots, he still found himself hanging with those guys because they were friends, man. They grew up together. So how did you like the crew, C's crew, Mike?
Yeah, like you said, they were young idiots growing up, but they were seized idiots. So kind of like guys that we grew up with,
Yeah.
and maybe because I'm getting older now, one thing hit me this time watching the movie never hit before, and that is it's the first time it dawned on me when C found out that all his buddies got taken out in literally one shot. Um, that's his whole childhood
Yeah.
going away. Because when you think about the relatives and the friends and people you lose through the years, you're not just losing that person, but you're losing maybe the only other person that gets that joke or knows that story or
Yeah.
had that experience with you. And he just lost all those guys that he grew up with, and they share good times and bad times. Even if had some questionable behavior throughout the movie, that was still his friends growing up. So all that was gone, just like that.
Yeah. How about you, Joe? How'd you like C's crew of knucklehead kids
Yeah,
here?
again, I felt it was really authentic because that's how it starts. As far as like being an associate, you have a gaggle of kids, and maybe some of them form a crew, and that crew maybe wants to become associates, right? And sometimes you have a crew of kids that are made for that life. Sometimes you don't, and sometimes it's a mix. You know, luckily for me, I didn't go to Catholic school, so I didn't know a lot of the Italian kids in the neighborhood. You know, and they didn't know me. That's why they called me the S word, which I won't say because I'm not Hispanic. You know, and but the people that knew me, the kids that knew me, were kids around my block, right?
Yeah.
And they were my close friends, and they were not those type of people. You know, if anything, I was the toughest guy, and I'm not that tough. Um, uh, but yeah, they it showed how, you know, these neighborhood Italian kids, you know, they're misguided. You know, and they want to do, you know, but you know, you could they could have been guided, because you know, when you're young and you're full of testosterone, you want to do, you know, maybe violent things, or you know, things that are not really um uh ordered correctly. But you know, that's why we have the military. You know, I joined the army, you know, but other people, especially a lot of people in the Italian American community, although there's been a lot of Italian Americans who have served and have served this country, you know, honorably. There's a certain sector of the Italian American community is like, I'm not going to die for somebody else. You know, I'm going to die for my family. I'm going to die for me, but I'm not going to, because the whole Italian psyche, you know, Italians will kick your ass on the street. But as far as like organized military, we're not really that good at that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like just to give you an example, you know, my on my mother's side of the family, my grandfather, who was like a really tough guy, you know, he was a master mason, he owned his own construction company, really tough guy, will kick your ass out on the street, right? But
Mhm.
during World War II, he evaded, not avoided, he evaded the draft. And and the way he did it was he found out that if you smoke a lot of cigarettes, your temperature increases, and
Mhm.
they'll reject you. So he smoked like a whole pack, like right before he went for his physical. They rejected him. He never served in the military in World War II. My mother's brother, um, you know, my mother's side of the family had come here in the late '60s, so he had just gotten his citizenship, and now they drafted him, you know, for Vietnam. This was like 1971. He was like, I ain't going to Vietnam. So he didn't speak English that well, but he played it like he could even speak English at all, right? And he played like dumb, and eventually they just let him go. And he was another guy, another tough guy who will kick your ass on the street, right? Then there's my father's side of the family, and they're not particularly tough men. Like my grandfather was not particularly, my father was definitely not particularly tough men, but my father's father was drafted in the Italian army. They invaded Albania in 1938 before World War II started. He was wounded early, sent home. My father served in the Italian army in the 1950s. You know, they weren't heroes, but they did their duty. You know, and it's just I found that to be a law. You know, when I was in the army, I would see guys who would like tabbed up Ranger, special, and they saw them in the civilian clothes. They look like geeks. You know,
Mhm.
and the guy that looks tough is usually not that great of a soldier. So it's almost like a law, right? So anyway, I went off on a tangent, but these guys, that's how it starts off. It starts off as a gaggle, and then eventually, you know, evolves into maybe a crew that becomes, you know, associates. But they were definitely not his stripe, but because he was born and raised in that neighborhood, you know, they were what they were.
Yeah, that's who you grow up with, and the you know the bottom line is I would argue they're looking at the example they have in the neighborhood. Who's the person coming home sweaty and dirty from working every day? Their parents. Who's not? Who's sitting on the corner, smoking a cigarette and having a drink in a nice suit? It's these guys. And I would argue that today there's a lot of different subcultures in our society where younger people look and they see an example set and say, oh, look, that big rich guy, this big, whether it's a musician or whoever it is. And they're like, oh, I want to be like that. And then so therefore I see them acting a certain way. I'm going to act like them. It gets people in trouble. It gets people in
Well, it's
trouble.
that's happened. It's now it's with women. You know, a lot of women are like, you know, why should I go to school and then work 9 to 5 when I could do OnlyFans?
Yeah.
You
I
know,
mean,
so
yeah.
that's
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the societies and the cultures that, you know, it leads people to look for examples because people model behaviors they see. And the behaviors these kids are seeing in that neighborhood, they're like, why shouldn't we have our own social club? They do it, and we can eventually be like them when we get older. So,
Mhm.
so Joe, what is your favorite part or scene in this movie? I know you already talked about one. It might have been that one line from De Niro, but what do you got?
Yeah, that was definitely my favorite part. The working man is the tough guy, and it's very true. I mean, I guess some people might argue, well, it's not, it's about being tough. It's about the intestinal fortitude of taking another man's life. But again, I don't know how I share the same DNA with people like that because in my mind, I'm thinking mortal sin.
Yeah,
You're murdering somebody, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how tough you are. You're never going to be that tough when you come before the judge, the final judge. You know, um, so uh, so to me, the everyday guy that gets up every morning like my father did, and even my mother, worked every day, and to me, those are the bigger heroes than anybody who participates in crime. And keep in mind that a lot of these people who participate, like I said, they're very smart. They could have
yeah,
chosen other
sure.
paths and been just as successful. Like the guy I grew up with, he was a very smart guy. He was very tough. He'll kick your ass, but he was also very smart. But that's the path he chose. But that was my favorite scene. With what he said, the tough
Yep.
guys is the working man. It's very true for me.
All right, very good, very good. Michael, what do you got?
Yeah, probably a lot of people's favorite scene, but definitely where the bikers rode into town, into the neighborhood, came in the neighborhood bar. Uh, you know, tough bikers. I think back then, I think a lot of outlaw biker groups are former military. I think a lot of them got started former military. Not all of them,
No, you're right.
but they come in this bar. It's definitely not their neighborhood, not their area, and it looked like Sonny looked like he was willing to, hey, set them up, let them have a drink. They said they're going to ride back out. But Sonny had definitely lived long enough. He was wise enough. He had backup already ready. So when things went sideways, I absolutely loved it. It's such a throwaway line in the big scheme of things. But when he locks the door and he turns around, he says, "Now you can't leave." And I
Yeah,
just love it. They talked about how the biker's face dropped, and and I would say I would like it even if it weren't bikers, if it was anybody. You don't go into anybody's neighborhood. You're a guest there, no matter what neighborhood it is. You act respectful. You do what you're going to do, and you leave. So no matter whose neighborhood it is.
yeah, yeah. I agree with you. That was my favorite, the start to finish, the whole biker scene. And this is another reason why I said earlier, like that whole neighborhood's judging little C if he's going to be a rat or not, and how he's going to take, because at the end of the day, these guys, even if people choose not to be involved in their lifestyle and be associates and all this stuff and work through that thing, these people are still like, hey, they're going to protect our neighborhood. They're not going to let anybody come in here and hurt us. And so they had to. If those guys went and busted up that neighborhood and were acting like jerks, and Sonny's crew didn't do anything, they're out. Like it's going to be like, hey, that's understood. You're going to be in charge and do your thing. We're
Sure.
not going to rat on you, but damn well, you better take care of us, right? And
Right.
and they did, right?
That's a good point that probably should be mentioned. I grew up in the '70s and the '80s in New York City, and things were definitely on the decline. White flight started in the '60s, and it continued into the '70s and the '80s. But our little enclaves, our little neighborhoods, were insulated from the stereotypical violence that you would hear of. And for the most part, it was because of the mafia, but partially also because we were a tight-knit ethnic community and we looked out for each other. When I was in the army, I met a lot of people who were like from small towns, and they'd say, "I don't know how you can grow up in New York. It's so many people." I said, I didn't really feel that way because I never, as a kid, I didn't leave the neighborhood. So for me, that neighborhood was my town. Everybody
Yeah,
knew me. Everybody knew my family. I couldn't get in trouble because they would my parents would find out. So okay, it wasn't a small town in the sense that anything outside was woods, but for me, it was a small town. And
sure.
yeah, the
That was
mafia.
more of my hometown.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So for me, Yeah, that's what they did. You know, as long as you didn't get involved with them, they protected the neighborhood. I never had to worry about getting shot or getting stabbed. You couldn't even buy drugs in the neighborhood. When I started smoking weed, and I don't condone anybody doing any drugs, when I started smoking, it was like when I was 18. It was right before I joined the army. I just wanted to try it, right? You had to go outside the neighborhood. You had to go to the non-white neighborhoods to get, because you could not buy any kind of drugs in the Italian neighborhood because they would not allow it. Now, don't get me wrong, you can get an ass whooping in my neighborhood, but you
Sure,
never had to
sure.
worry about getting shot or stabbed.
There
That
you
won't even
go.
cost you any money.
So, so I want to give an honorable mention. The funniest, and one of Ebert gave it 4 stars in his write up, which I read. One of the things he said this movie is funny as hell, which is a lot of people sort of it gets over them. But like the dice scene where the 3 guys get put in the bathroom when Sonny's like, it's like coffee cakes is over there in the corner, the kid's about to roll the dice, little C's rolling, and Sonny looks at him. He's like, I can't have this kid looking at this face when he's on a luck streak. Get him the hell out of here. Like he puts all these guys, the guy who's the jinxed guy, he's just putting him in the bathroom. Get him out of here. I thought that was hilarious. I was laughing out loud when I saw it. I also love the test when Sonny says, if a woman, you lock the car door, if she doesn't lean over and unlock it for you after you let her in, that's great.
I've used that my whole life.
Yeah, I've talked with some people about that, and it's funny. Like I had an issue where like my wife is taking my car to drop off at service because it's right near where her work is, and she knows she's very short. She's 5 foot tall, and I'm going to drive her car. So I get out in the morning. I'm leaving early in the morning. Sun's not up yet, and I get in the car, and I thought of that because like I have to. I can't crunch in the car. I can't fit in how small she has it. But she knew that I was taking her car in the morning. So when I got in, I was like, oh, the seat. Like, so she lowered the seat and backed it up for me. I was like, that's like the test, man. If
my
I
wife
did,
does that for me too. Yeah.
there you go. So that's perfect. So I love the test. It's awesome. And yeah,
Well,
that's something to be used.
I'm going to throw one more in there then because I agree. And I think honorable mention for me is anytime Sonny was doling out wisdom, because it was like he was a bad guy, but he was above everything. Like he wasn't concerned about, race and sex and all this. He's like, hey, you do you, basically. And y'all were talking about the test where you all have experienced that. I will say the wisdom. Remember when he kept chasing, C kept chasing that guy that owed him
Yeah.
$20, and I'm just paraphrasing. But when Sonny said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, how much does he owe you?" And he's like, $20. It's like, okay, so it only cost you $20 to get rid of him, to get him out of your life. And I have thought about things like that so many times in life where you're like, you know what, that's pissing me off, but I get to cut that out of my life. Like something bothers you, something pisses you off. It's like, hey, lesson learned, but it's out of my life.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, that was great advice. And I also love thinking of Ebert, how he was saying how funny it was. Also, Sonny's driving around the neighborhood backwards so he doesn't put mileage on his car. Like
That was a
all
great
these things,
scene.
right? That just great stuff. So okay. Least favorite part, stupidest scene. Mike, what you got?
I'll just return real quick to what I said. This is a hard movie to find a bad scene in for me because it's such a good movie. So I'll just return to the Joe Pesci part at the end. If I was going to
Okay.
take anything out, I would probably just use a different low-key actor in that scene just to not interrupt the flow. Again, it's not a killer at all for this movie, but
Yeah.
it's the only thing I could find that was like, I might do that a little bit
Okay.
differently.
Okay. Makes sense. Makes sense. Joe, what do you got?
Yeah, I don't have the least favorite part.
Okay.
I thought the whole movie was so good. And by the way, you know the guy Eddie Mush, the Jinx guy.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You know that the guy who played that in the movie, that's the real guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Wow.
That's
Now that
funny.
is cool.
That's hilarious.
Hey, but
Yeah.
he got lucky, right?
Yeah,
To get that role.
exactly.
You got lucky for that role. So,
Yeah.
so for me, least favorite part, it's related to my favorite scene, the biker scene. It's related. The
Mhm.
when the big guy does the belly squeeze against the bar,
Uh,
that doesn't hurt. That doesn't hurt. That's not going to hurt. That's stupid. And I hated how much of a wimp C was in that fight. You're there with the crew, and you've got all these guys from the neighborhood backing you up. If you've got a chance to punch a biker in the face who's messing your neighborhood up, you need to do it. he didn't do it. He sat like a baby in the corner. But then he gets out when they get outside and one of the guys starts running, the rest of his crew chase the guy down and beat him up. They're like, get out of our neighborhood. It's like they're getting practice to be associates right there, right?
Right.
And I guess that shows that C really probably not cut out for that world because he didn't just jump in and start beating guys.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought he should have taken a hit or something, because he did get pushed down and everything. So anyway, but yeah, it's not easy to find really bad scenes here. Additional comments on this movie, Mike? What like something we haven't talked about? We've talked about a lot.
No, I mean, you've heard me talk about the bus driver because that really resonated with me, my dad. I was impressed that De Niro worked and got his commercial driver's license for this movie, his CDL, so that he could drive the bus, which, added to the continuity and the realism. And I believe Palminteri, again, this is his story, being told about his childhood, things he's seen. His dad was a bus driver.
Oh,
And he
yeah.
called him the moral compass for the movie.
Okay, very good, very good. Yeah, that's cool that De Niro went through got that license so he can actually drive the bus. That's cool.
Yeah.
Joe, additional comments on this movie?
Yeah. The guy who played Sonny in real life, obviously that's not his real name. Uh, and it's never really been revealed who that person. I mean, there's people who speculated who they think that person might be.
Yeah.
And that person really did die, but he did not die the way he died in the movie.
Okay.
So that was artistic license.
Yeah.
But
It sort of brought it full circle though, right?
yeah,
From the
it did.
start
It did.
to it sort of circled it around. So
It did. Yes.
all right, very good. The only other thing that I saw when I was looking at it is 2016, the Broadway musical came out. It was co-directed by De Niro. And so that would be, I didn't even know that. I knew about the one man play because that's what it's based on, but then someone made it a Broadway and De Niro was involved. So pretty interesting. I don't know who all was in it, but pretty interesting. So message, the lesson, the moral of this story. Joe, you've been on the podcast before. It's not even worth watching something or reading a book or anything like that if you don't get something from it. What did you get from this, man?
Yeah, for me, the moral of the story is all about what Robert De Niro said in that one line. It's what I've been wrestling with my whole life. In my mind, because look, I was born and raised in Brooklyn. Trying to be tough. It was a thing. But where's the line? I mean, do you kill somebody? And if you okay, look, I was in the army. I was trained to kill. It's possible if you go to war, there's going to be a possibility that you're going to kill somebody. But that's a different scenario. It's illegal. You're legally doing that. Whereas here, you're taking another person's life for money,
Yeah,
or for power. And that's a line that I just, I couldn't cross. I couldn't cross. So I think it gave a good moral story that crime does not pay.
yep.
Even though in real life sometimes crime does pay, unfortunately, but ultimately it doesn't pay because ultimately you got to face the judge, right? The judge of the universe. But it gave a good moral story that crime doesn't pay, and that the working man is the good guy, and that's the way to go. And the 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 nuclear family of being brought up in a with a father and a mother. And by the way, in real life, he had two other sisters. They weren't in the movie, and I heard they're kind of pissed about that. But growing up in a nuclear family is healthy for the child. And growing up in a neighborhood that is you know knit together so well, that's very healthy, and that produces people that are going to contribute to society. Unlike what we have today, where we have children being born out of wedlock, and being not being educated, being involved in crime. The neighborhoods are dangerous.
Sure.
My neighborhood was, like I said, my neighborhood was never again. I could have gotten my ass kicked, but I never worried about getting shot or getting stabbed, with some of the neighborhoods now. So it's unusual because nowadays a lot of Hollywood movies don't have a good moral ending, but
Yeah.
this was a very good moral ending to the story.
All right. What do you got, Michael?
Yeah, I'm going to cheat a little bit on this. I'm going to take what the movie gave us. The saddest thing in life is wasted talent. And from what I've heard from Palminteri, he said, it's not necessarily being the best or excelling, or it's not taking the wrong path and not hanging around the wrong people. If you're familiar with, was it Warren Buffett, his partner that passed away, used to say that to succeed, sometimes he always takes the inverse. So he doesn't say, well, how do I succeed in life? He says, I look at how do I fail in life? And I don't do any of those things. And sometimes, yeah, that's the way you don't waste your talent. You don't hang out with the knuckleheads that are going to lead you down the wrong path. You don't knowingly do something where the juice is not worth the squeeze, that type of thing.
Yeah, so that reminds me of like people talk about post-mortem things, and I'm not talking about like when a person passes away, but like post-mortem, something really goes wrong in your life. Let's say you find yourself in a prison cell, and people go, wow, post-mortem,
Mhm.
I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that. But if we do a pre-mortem on life when we're young kids and say like, hey, imagine my life is a failure. What things would get me there? And you say hanging out with those kids in the social club, getting in the
Mhm.
car with them and doing things, stealing, shooting drugs into your veins, like all these different things that people find themselves doing. So if you can like put that together, that those things would definitely lead to a failure in life. I think it's better to think about those things up front if you can, than to have that, oh, hindsight's 2020. If I should have never gotten addicted to heroin type of thing. Well, yeah, of
Mhm.
course, now that you're in the gutter, right? So
Yeah.
so
Who
but
knew?
yeah, exactly. Like so I think this is the important message here: following advice and taking wisdom from people that you think are wise doesn't always include following in their footsteps, because a lot of times people are giving you wisdom, like Sonny's giving wisdom, but at the same time it's like, no, you don't want to be like me, you want to do bigger, better things, right?
Yeah.
Don't waste talent. I got that too. C's crew and Sonny, I think, were both examples of wasted talent. And maybe even so was Lorenzo at the end of the day. Could he have even had a better life? Maybe, right? I know he's hardworking and everything. Obviously, the message there is nobility in the simple, honest life of hard work and dedication to family. That's huge. And if people sometimes can lie on their deathbed and think, you know what, I was honest, I worked hard, I did my part, I raised a family, I gave them what I could of myself, then you don't have to be a guy who invented, the iPhone, or you don't have to be a billionaire. You lived a good life, right? So,
Right.
um,
Yeah, I mean the greatest saint was not a pope or a priest or a church theologian or anything like that. He was a father and a worker, Saint Joseph.
yeah, yeah, and of course, my last bit of notes here, just like y'all said, crime doesn't pay, even though sometimes it seems like it does, right? It might seem like it, but it doesn't pay. That's the same message at the end of the day that I got out of Goodfellas too. So, Joe, you still love this movie, and you would someone hasn't seen it, you're going to tell them to watch it.
Absolutely,
Okay,
without a
Mike.
doubt.
Mike, how about you? That now
Oh
that
yeah,
you've seen it again.
this gets better every time I watch it. I've seen it several times. Because it's like every few years, it seems like a little bit different movie every time I watch it. It hits different. So definitely watch it. And like me, if it's been several years since you've seen it, watch it again because you're going to see something or feel something that you didn't last time you watched it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm the same. I say if you haven't seen it, definitely watch it. It's a good movie. Got to
Hmm.
watch it. So we're gonna go to ratings, fellas. Worst rating, we've got a 5 rating scale. Like a terrible movie would be take a bathroom break. You don't even need to be in a room. Below average movie, no snacks. I'll probably just sit and read a book or scroll through my phone while the movie's playing. Average movie, I'll sip a Coke while I'm watching it. Above average movie, Coke and some popcorn. And then the awesome, awesome best movie, Coke, popcorn, and a box of your favorite movie candy. That'd be Raisinets for me. And I know Goobers for Mike. And Joe, I know you told us what your favorite candy was that you would have at the movies.
Maisonettes.
It's Raisinets too?
Yeah.
All right, very
For the
good.
movies, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, for the
everyday
movies.
life, my favorite is Nutella, but they're not
There
going
you
to be
go.
selling Nutella at the movie theater.
No, you would think not. A little bit messy there, right? So what's your rating, Joe, for this movie?
My rating is Coke, popcorn, and a box of Raisinets.
All right, very good, very good. Expected from the super fan, of course. Michael, what do you got?
Oh yeah, no, definitely my highest rating. Except since we are in New York, I'm going to go with an egg cream, a slice of pizza, and an Italian ice.
Okay, so you give it the highest though. You got
Oh
three
yeah.
things there. All right. I'm going to give it a Coke, a popcorn, and if someone's sitting next to me and
Hmm.
they offer me some Raisinets,
Yeah.
I'll take some Raisinets. I'm not going to give it the tops of the tops,
Okay.
but it's like a that B plus. It's about there, right? Maybe B plus plus. So good movie, not on my top top tier 100%. There's a few things about it that I think could have been better. I never even thought about what you guys said about Carmine and Joe Pesci, but I definitely think there could have been better in Jane's acting and things like that. But it's the story. I give Chazz Palminteri an A plus for the story. So
Hey, do you know either
Ooh,
Steve or Joe? Do they have this play anywhere where you can watch it on Amazon or YouTube? Because
I don't know, but look that up. That there probably is somewhere you could stream the thing.
yeah,
Probably, I would bet.
You talk about
Um,
the musical or the actual one man play?
no, the actual one man play. I'm not huge
I
into
don't know. I
musicals,
saw the
but
one man play in person,
yeah,
and if you're going to see a play, it's always better to see it in person than to
yeah,
yeah,
because that just that destroys the purpose.
yeah,
sure.
Um, but yeah, I
yeah.
would
Well,
definitely.
maybe the
Because
musical.
he travels. He doesn't just he's just not in New York.
Yeah,
He goes all over the country. So if
Okay,
wherever you are, if you get a chance to go see him, do it. It's great.
so he's still doing it then.
Yeah.
Okay,
all
awesome,
right, very
great.
cool. You have to look that up, Michael, and see what
Yeah.
you find. So I don't
Mhm.
I don't know that it'd be coming through your part of Virginia, but who knows? Maybe.
Will not be coming through Pigs Knuckle, Arkansas.
Where are you from, Mike?
No, I'm from Southern Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Man, we did a lot of
Okay.
work on this one. We did a lot of work on this one. So thanks everybody for listening to Gonzo, Mike, and a VCR. And we want to thank Joe for being on the podcast again, man. We love having
Yes.
you on. What parting words of wisdom do you have for us, Joe?
Um, Go to mass, and if
Go
you're
to
not
mess.
Catholic, become Catholic.
Okay. Okay.
Big plug for the Catholic Church.
There you go. So listen, people, if you enjoyed it, please follow or subscribe. We appreciate it. And we'd love you to share the show with someone, with a fellow movie lover, or an enthusiast of the 80s or 90s or whoever. If you have a movie you'd like us to watch, or if you're a super fan of a movie like Joe and you want to be a guest, or even if you just have a comment, or even like if you'd like to tell us what your favorite chips were in the 80s or whenever you grew up. Michael, I don't know what your favorite chips would
See if
be.
you can guess, Steve.
I'm going to say I'm going to tell you mine. Mine were Funyuns, and it's
Hmm.
probably because after I was in the 80s, before I was in the army, people, and I smoked a little bit of the marijuana, I would get the munchies, and Funyuns definitely filled the bill. I don't know. What do you got, Michael?
Nacho cheese Doritos. I used to put down
Ooh,
entire bags
those are
at
good.
one
That's a
time when you could do that and not gain any weight.
top notch, top notch. You got favorite chips, Joe?
Not really. I was always a Nutella guy.
Okay. All right. Always Nutella. All right. There you go. So if you want to tell us what your favorite chips were or anything like that, shoot us an email at gonzomikevcr@gmail.com. That's GONZOMIKEVCR@gmail.com. I'm checking that once daily for you, Michael. Additionally, leave us comments on your listening platforms, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. We'll respond to those. We've had a couple good comments on our YouTube. We've added some polls to episodes on Spotify. Let us know your thoughts. So it's just not me and Michael answering the question on the damn poll, people. You just have to click on it, right? It's
It's like
right there in
instant
the
messenger
episode.
between me and Steve.
Exactly, exactly. So now we did our Facebook page is up. And so get on there, search Gonzo, Mike, and a VCR podcast, and get on there and follow. And you're going to get messages about upcoming episodes and when episodes drop. So just search us, Gonzo, Mike, and a VCR podcast on Facebook. We'd love to get you following us on there. So in our next episode, we have another super fan. We're going to go all the way back. The first time we're leaving the 80s and going earlier than the 80s. We're going back to 1979 to look at what has been called a psychological epic war film, directed by Francis Ford Coppola and starring Martin Sheen. Tell them what it is, Michael.
Okay, so this is a classic I have heard so much about, but you'll be shocked to find I have never seen Apocalypse Now.
You're crazy. I
I know.
cannot
I was
believe it.
I was like a little kid when this came out, and I just never went back and picked it up.
All right, very good. So we're going to check out Apocalypse Now. It's going to be fun. It's going to be awesome. I love that. So, all right, folks. Looks like that's a wrap. I'm Gonzo.
I'm Mike.
Until next time, keep watching movies. Gonzo Mike and VCR is produced by Gonzo and Mike. All rights reserved.